This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Oh, shit. Hey, this is Key to the Street Cred Sports Trading, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. Sorry for my language. Very sorry for my language, but as you could hear before I started talking, yeah, brother got that theme music. They say all heroes or all superheroes need theme song. I don't know if y'all have ever seen I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, but if you ever seen that movie, it's funny when they have the hero and he has his theme music. So we officially have our theme music. I want to give a special shout out to my man Ches Santana with Rank Up Entertainment for providing that. Man, it's special. It's like I feel like my man on Hustle and Flow. I can't get this beat out of my head, man. I can't get it out of my head. I listen to it more than I should, and I just really, really appreciate it. So you're going to start hearing that on a lot of stuff because that's like a stamp of approval for what we do. But yeah, I was just super excited. So this one, I kind of started this one a little different, but this is another episode of Time to Ball. This is episode 14. And without further ado, let me get onto some things on my mind. All right. The NFL playoffs were this past weekend, and okay, the Kansas City Jaguars game, you kind of figured, yeah, Kansas City was going to win that. Although Jacksonville, is ascending, but you kind of figured Kansas City was going to pull away in there. You kind of figured Philly was going to take care of business against the Giants. It was those other two that we was trying to find out about. We wanted to know who was going to win that Cincinnati-Buffalo game. And it was surreal at times because you think about, the last time they played and how it went. But, Cincinnati came in like, yeah, we honoring him, but we finna drag y'all through the snow, which is really literally what they did because it was snowing. So Cincinnati won. They really won handedly. Buffalo's going to have a lot of questions, and it seems to be a theme. It seems to be a thing. They had a lot of injuries, right? Had a lot of injuries. Also, Josh Allen has been kind of, mustering through with an elbow injury he had early in the season. So he didn't quite look like himself is what they were saying. But, if you can play, you got to play. So you can't have excuses, although, there are reasons. But, hey, that's what happened. So congratulations to Cincinnati and Kansas City. They're going to meet. A rematch of last year's AFC Championship where Cincinnati ended up winning. So I know Kansas City is really, really looking forward because they get another crack at them. With Mahomes having a high ankle sprain, he did come back in the game and he was able to, throw and win. But that's that adrenaline. Once that adrenaline wears off, that ankle and those high ankle sprains are hard. You're out a lot longer when you have those high ankle sprains. Regular ankle sprains, not like regular, but the lower ones, it seems to recover a little bit faster, but the higher ones, it seems to take longer. So I'm hoping he's, full strength or he can really go because I loved seeing the matchups at full strength because I don't like if this would have happened and that would have happened, right? Well, let's move on to the NFC. Where we had Dallas and San Francisco. Now, there's history. Obviously, the two franchises, they've won multiple Super Bowls. Dallas has not been to a Super Bowl since 95, and they actually haven't been to an NFC championship since 95. They've had all of this long drought where they haven't won a playoff game, or they won one playoff game, then they lost the second one. This was first year in, I think, 25 years where they won a playoff game on the road when they won last week. So they was going to San Francisco, and they were matched it was a great matchup. San Francisco has been to the playoffs and won and continued to be more relevant than the Cowboys during this stretch of time. This was a really good game. I actually thought San Francisco was going to win a little bit more handily. I like Purdy. It's something about him. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. And he looked a little rattled at first, which is kind of what you expect. It's a bigger game. It's more on the stakes. He's rookie this first time to see it. So you expect him to be a little nervous, and that's what he was. But he settled in. And he started looking like what I've seen, these games, these past, weeks when I've seen him play. So now we got the Final Four. Before I get to Final Four, I was watching stuff because everybody blames and, is this person's fault, that person's fault. Man, it looks like Dallas has kind of had enough of their quarterback. I think he's good. I like him. I've liked him since he was at Mississippi State. I wish he wouldn't have went to Dallas. It's something. Look, I'm not a Cowboy fan or a Cowboy hater. Here's where I am. Back when I was younger, if you've ever seen me, people think, well, you know what? I'm going to save that story. I'm going to save that story for the end. I'm going to throw that in at the end. But ever since Jimmy Johnson got fired in the manner in which he did, I wasn't feeling that because I was a Jimmy Johnson fan. So I've kind of been on the, where it's like, hey, I don't think you're going to be successful until such time as you relinquish that kind of control to a regular head coach. And he seemed to do it with Bill Parcells, and, that didn't end well. So I it's like it's staring him in the face, but the owner being the general manager doesn't seem to want to relinquish certain things, but he's done a great job giving them talent. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it's something there that it's like he's blinded by it, and it seems to be like everybody else knows it. Everybody in the room knows it but him, and he's not going to do anything. There was an episode, it was a long back. I'm for to show my age. It was the Andy Griffin Show. And Barney, who was the sheriff, they were doing a Christmas song. They were in the choir. They were singing. So they were singing, and the singing was terrible. But it was Barney who was terrible. And everybody else was singing, and they was looking at each other and kind of looking at him as he was singing. So he stops and he goes to Andy and he says, yeah, you know what? I hear it too. I hear that somebody's really terrible. I'm going to walk around and see if I can find out who it is that's terrible, right? But it's actually him that's terrible. So that's kind of how it is with Jerry. He's the one, he's not terrible, but he could have an excellent coach if he relinquished control over certain things. And if you look around, how many owners do you see that everybody's trying to find out what they say? How many general managers are you trying to see that everybody want to find out what they say? It's usually the coach and the players and stuff. But with Dallas, it's different, and I get it. I'm from Dallas, so I understand, the situation and everything. But at some point, if it's not working, you need to try something else. So with Dak, it kind of seems like they've kind of had, the end of the run with him because, the actual official Twitter, Cowboys Twitter put out something saying that he made mistakes. Michael Parsons, who's the, all-star phenomenal defensive end / linebacker, kind of tweeted almost the same thing. Dak came out and said, hey, it was on me. And I get all of that, and you got to take responsibility. But, two things that I saw over starting Sunday night and into Monday where they were breaking down film. Now, I'm not a film breakdown X's and O's person when it comes to football. I understand things. I can see and pay attention to things, but I'm not detailed in it because it's not my sport. And I will try to educate myself even more because I'm fascinated with all the little nuances in football, right? Now, basketball, I'm on that. That's my thing, but football is not. So I tend to not try to speak on things that I'm not as versed in. But they were talking about two couple of particular instances. One was a play where he was calling the play, and it was gonna be a pass down the seam to C.D. Lamb, who was going to be covered. I want to say it was Fred Warner, one of the linebackers. So, you got the play, you got the matchup, quote unquote, that you wanted. It was a pretty good pass because CD was able to have his hands on it, but the angle and where it came in, it would have been a phenomenal catch. Now you have wide receivers that say, hey, if you get both hands on it, you're supposed to catch it. All right. But when they were going through the play, they were saying that, Dak knew exactly the coverage he had. And as I'm going to say Fred Warner, but as a linebacker, as he hiked, as he, snapped the ball, the linebacker turned his back and went up the field immediately to cover C.D. Lamb. Well, the read would have been T.I. Hilton, who would have been running a similar vertical seam on the other hash mark. That is who he should have went to, who was actually open. That's a touchdown. That's 6, right? T.Y. Hilton goes over and talks to him, like, the camera showed it's like after that play, and Dak has his look almost like you were open. Now, that's just me interpreting. I have no idea if that was happening right then, and I know sometimes they make it seem like it was more than what it was, but he was having a conversation with him. And oftentimes you have conversation with, hey, you know what? I got him right here. I was open on that. Next time it happens, you got to look for me, right? Because that's what receivers want. Well, then they had another instance where his first interception was he went through his progressions. And they were talking about how how quarterbacks hop on their feet. And usually after 3 hops is usually when they should be getting the ball out of their hand. Well, he had 5 hops on this. And he was throwing an out. And it looked like it was supposed to be a hook and comeback. But Michael Gallup was a receiver. Part of it looked like he kind of stopped and didn't come back. The other part looked like we weren't sure where Dak was really throwing the ball because he was getting pressure on that throw, right? And it was intercepted. And that was like early on in the first quarter. So it was one of those things to where they started pointing it out where he had his second interception. It was almost the exact same thing where, he's taking too much time. He needs to, he knows where his checkdowns are. He should just get the ball out and see what happens. In a game of this magnitude where you have 2 strong defenses, it's usually the team that doesn't make the mistakes. If you don't make the mistakes, you should be in a perfect position to win. Now, having said that, with all of those 2 interceptions that he threw, the block kick, they still had a chance. But then there was clock management issues. So needless to say, they lost and nobody knows what the future is going to be. It's really more emotional right now. So after a few days, they're going to have to look at changing some things with the way the offensive coordinator calls plays. They are aggressive, but then I hear a lot of football personnel talking about how simple schemed a lot of this stuff is. So it looks good and they allow them to get stuff, but when you play against really good defenses, it's easier to exploit it now. So hopefully there's some kind of change, but if you ask me, I've been asked, well, who do you think's going to Super Bowl? It's really a coin flip because these are the 4 teams, and Buffalo and even Dallas, I thought all of those teams had an excellent chance to get there. That Philly and San Francisco game is going to be a war. I have no idea who's going to win that one. And same on the other side. So I would say, San Francisco possibly could get there, but I could also say Philly would get there. Now on the other side, I think Cincinnati has the edge with Mahomes' ankle being, unclear. So I would possibly say Cincinnati would get back to him, but I'm just so excited to watch both of those games. They're going to be knockdown, drag out fight. So I'm excited for it. Let me move on to another thing. Kendrick Nunn was traded. Kendrick Nunn of the Los Angeles Lakers. He's kind of a point guard slash shooting guard. I think he's more of a one. I think that's really kind of had him defined as a one. And he got traded for, God, I can't pronounce his name. Gentleman from the Wizards, Rue. I have to look it up because I don't want to disrespect the man's name. But he's a long stretch four, maybe three, that can shoot the threes, and he's been pretty well up there at Washington. But he's behind Kuzma, and he doesn't get as many looks and touches. Now he had a 30-point game not too long ago, so he can shoot it. But they're making that trade for him to come, and it should provide some help. They say he's not really good defensive. Well, he's not that he's not good. He's not as committed. He's not going to help them as much, quote unquote, on defense. But you can give anybody a defense assignment and say, look, just do this, and they should be able to help. But offensively, he should be able to stretch the floor and give LeBron more driving lanes. Here's what I noticed. Memphis and the Lakers played last week. I'm watching the game, and Kendrick Nunn had two really weird, decisions that he made. First was he was off ball. It was weak side help. And his rotation was a weird rotation where he got really down in the lane and he left his shooter. And the shooter, got it, knocked it down. And there was a look like, what are you doing? From the players. Like, what are you doing? It wasn't as big of an issue. I see a lot of players rotate too hard and too deep when they know that the person they're guarding is a shooter. I get the philosophy, but understanding where you're supposed to be. So that was that. The second one, however, they were up, and it was like 28 seconds left. Kendrick fouls. Like who was it? Bain? I think it was Bain or Brooks was bringing the ball up. And no, it might have been Ja. It was Ja. He tried to reach in and steal the ball. Well, there was no reason to, right? And they were already in the bonus. So it's like, why would you foul him? Russell Westbrook has this exasperated look like, what are you doing? Right? Even LeBron kind of, he wasn't as demonstrative, but the body language from them and the bench was kind of like, yeah. So I thought to myself at that moment, I said, man, I don't know how long they're going to keep this guy. Because, Memphis, hottest team in the league at that point. I want to say it was 10 straight or 11 straight. Lakers were up. They were giving it to them. And they allowed with certain, and it wasn't just Kendrick. There were others. Trust me, there were others. But the reason I'm speaking to Kendrick is because he's the one that ended up getting traded. After that incident, I thought, I think they're going to let him go. Lo and behold, a few days later, there's discussion, and he's gone. And I think it could be better for him because I can't remember where he was coming from off the top of my head, but he was kind of ascending. But I think being there with the Lakers, you have Russell, you have Russell Westbrook, you also have Patrick Beverly, and then Dennis Schroeder. Those are all point guards. They're all, starting point guard material. They do different things. They have different skill sets. So him coming in, it was going to be hard for him to really get a flow, and he's been hurt and everything. So, yeah, he's gone, and hopefully he'll get back to what he was before he came there. I think it could be a good trade for both of them because Washington doesn't have like a strong core of point guards like the Lakers do. And when I say a strong core, I mean just experience what they can bring. Russell's not known to be a three-point shooter, but he does so many other things, right? Patrick Beverly, defensive. He doesn't shoot as well as he should. He's not really an offensive threat. Dennis Schroeder's kind of the middle of both of them. He can score, he can play D, he can shoot and stuff like that. So Washington doesn't have three guards like that, right? They got Bradley, and then they have some other, guards that help and do what they do. So I think it's going to be pretty good for them. Okay, so having said all of that, I am going to get into my basketball training ideology. Yo, I like to give a shout out to my sponsors, Next Style Designs. Next Style Designs makes quality shirts or custom apparel for all occasions. Next Style Designs. Mind Inc. Mind Inc. offers a wide array of digital media. Mind Inc. asks, are you using your mind? Southwest Basketball Showcase Recruiting Service. The link between your coach and your dreams. Maracay Zero Down Solar. Call Greg Suber for your solar needs. PCS Plus is the carpet service for all your cleaning needs. Coaches not playing kids. Okay, so with coaches not playing kids, here's what I'm talking about. Let me make sure I say this. And when I watch, sometimes I always ask, well, why do they keep repeating and saying the same damn thing? I get it now, because somebody will always try to take something and say, no, that's what you meant. So let me make sure I'm clear with this. To coaches on all levels, right? Little league, high school, AAU, city league, middle school, college, pros, semi-pros, rec leagues, at the park, wherever if you coaching a trash ball game in the house, wherever it is. When I say this, if you're not doing this, I'm not speaking to you. What I'm going to say is, number one, I'm not a proponent of everybody playing when it comes to the competitive side. If it's developmental, I think everybody should play, because it should be about developing the kids, letting them play so they learn the mistakes that they made, and then you help them to learn from those mistakes. On the competitive side, you should play your strongest kids. I'm totally for that. Now, having said that, I do think that as coaches, you should be a little bit more transparent at the beginning of the season with those kids, and possibly not. Well, okay, in city leagues and AAU, you really kind of are dealing with parents because it's kind of a pay to play. High school, middle school, obviously college is not an issue, but high school, middle school, you're not really doing it with parents. You're really doing it with the players. I feel like you should be I feel like you should be transparent. You bring them, they make the team, right? When kids make the team, if this is the first time you've ever seen any of those kids, you know who your strongest players are. You know who your role players are. You know who your rotational players are. And you also know who your practice players and possibly the players that are probably never going to hit the floor are. I really feel like as a coach, you should bring them in, maybe individually or at a group. If you bring a group in and you say, hey, look, you guys are going to be my strongest guys, players. You're going to get, more opportunities. We're going to run a lot of things through you. I'm going to lean on you. You're going to play a bulk of the minutes. Hey, you guys are going to be my rotational and role players, as well as, getting some minutes. So these are going to be your specific jobs. You're going to get to play a lot. Okay. Or you're going to play. Okay. So I'm going to go 7 or 8 deep. So if you got 15 players, if you're going 8 deep, there are going to probably be 7 players that don't play as much. So those 7 players, hey, you guys, you're not my strongest players. You should see that when you're in there practicing and playing. You should know that you're making a lot of mistakes. So if that's the issue, then okay, we're going to put it out there and we're going to try to help you get better. We're going to let you know what things that you need to get better at. Okay? You struggle on this, you do this, all of those things, right? That stuff doesn't happen. To me, it would be so simple. Okay, of course you're going to have people upset. But here's what I've always said when it comes to that. The game is the game. I don't care how good you think your kid is. When you put your kid out there to play, that shit is going to show. So if you did film study, which is something I mentioned on a previous podcast, if you do film study, you can show that kid and that parent, if that parent is just so upset that their child isn't playing, you can show them, look, when they run this press, look at what your child does. They turn the ball over all the time. Every child that we play, every team we play in, they press. So unless we can get your child better, your child is not going to hit the floor. Now that parent has to make a decision. That child has to make a decision. I got to get better on that, or we got to find a way to get better. Sometimes the coaches will try to help, but that's usually when organizations such as ours come in, because I can help fix that. I've done it plenty of times. Very successful with helping kids understand how to deal with the traps, right? So that's the way it should go. Now, it doesn't go that way. Coaches will tell players. Some coaches will tell players in vague ways, well, yeah, you just need to get better. Like, what the hell does that mean? I need to get better at what? So I often tell the kids, you need to be specific, and you need to ask relevant questions, and you have to ask it in a certain way, because coaches have egos, and I get it. But at the same time, if you don't have no winning record and this is your first year of coaching, you shouldn't have an ego. The ego should come with the success rate, and there needs to be success rate, not districts. You can only be somewhat, arrogant if you win some districts, but some of the arrogance that I hear about from people, from coaches, about other coaches, from parents and players about certain coaches, some of these coaches, and y'all will know coaches nationwide, so this is not just a local thing. Some coaches are arrogant as if they have, 15 state championships, nationals. They got all this hardware. They're on ESPN, and, they're going to be a Hall of Famer and stuff like that, when nobody knows that person's name outside of the coaches in the district. You need to have the hardware to be able to have that level of arrogance. That's me, right? That's the way I feel about it. So coming to me, talking to me in an arrogant way, and I'm like, hey, well, what have you done? How many kids have you produced? Yeah, you're winning a few games here and there. You never get out of the first round. Man, if this was college sports, you would have been gone a long time ago. Okay, so what I did appreciate was this coach telling one of the kids that I just got, the kid said he wasn't playing it. And I asked him, like, well, did you talk to the coach? Did your coach tell you, what you need to work on? And the kid said that the coach told him that, he was off offensive liability. Now, when the kid said it, he kind of had, his shoulders were shrugged. He was very disappointed and hurt by it. And I looked the kid in the eye and said, so what do you think? Because I knew the answer to it, because I've actually assessed the kid. And the kid said, yeah, I am. So he agreed with that. It was hard for him to come to terms with it, but he agreed with it. Now, the best thing that can happen is now we can move on and address those weaknesses. And that's what we've started doing. And lo and behold, what his parents have told me in the 3 to 4 weeks that I've had him, is that he's gotten better and better. He's gotten more confident. He's working on those liabilities to bring him up to strengths. So now he's getting more playing time. He's not there. He's not there. It's going to take some time, but he's working on it. To me, that is the perfect scenario, right? But some coaches will not do that. Some coaches will just let their games go and play. Here's one other thing that I've actually seen happen. I've seen a team play. I've watched film of teams play. These are different teams, so it's not just one school doing it. I've watched it. It's everywhere. This team had a 30-point lead. They were up 30. middle to the end of third quarter, you knew that other team wasn't going to be able to get up, but they never subbed. This coach kept the same five. One coach kept the same five in the whole entire game. Another coach subbed in one player. We're talking a 30-point lead. You got 10 to 15 kids on that team. And here's why I have a really big problem with it. Because obviously this is kind of on the lower levels. One of this was a varsity. If you're going to run into try to make a deep run, you're going to need more than 5 or 6 players. You're going to need more because you can't you don't know the unknown. How those 5 or 6 players are going to feel going into certain situations, who you're playing, and more importantly, how the refs are. Some refs get real whistle blow heavy, and 1 or 2 fouls can feel like 4 when you're in the playoffs because you only get 5. So if you were playing 6 players, now you got 1 or 2 in that got early foul trouble. Now you got to go to the bench because if you leave those players in, and let's say you go to a soft zone, you're hurting your team because those kids are going to go aggressively at those players. Those players can't foul. So now they're going to be getting easy shots. If those players do foul, you worried about players fouling out in the first half. Now, guess what have happened if you would have been playing, not everybody. Again, I'm not saying everybody, but if you would have went maybe 8 to 9 players deep, you get a couple of players to foul here and there, you can steal some minutes with subs. Because these players, 8 through 12 or whatever, 8 through 10, 8 through 11, they've been playing the whole season. They have experience. They've had experience in blowouts, just getting used to running the offense. When you're up by 30, you don't benefit from continuing to score. But you can benefit from running your plays, getting looks, teaching your players certain concepts that you want to be able to do, right? So if you're doing that, now when you go into the playoff situation, you're more confident. You can go 10 or 12 deep. I'm not saying you got to play out 10 or 12. But you can't expect a player to be good if you never play him. But more importantly, the thing that I want everybody to understand is I'm not saying you need to play everybody. I am saying you need to be honest with them. If you don't feel like that kid, like here was my question. You mean to tell me your kid wasn't good enough to get 4 to 5 minutes in a 30-point blowout? That's insane. If your kid is not good enough to get 5 minutes in the game when it's a blowout and going into the middle of the third quarter, you shouldn't have even had that kid on the team. Or at least tell that kid, look, you're not good enough to play, but I want you to be a practice player. Okay, you can practice and help the other kids get better and such, and you'll be an integral part of our success because you were helping them out in practice. I'm okay with that as long as you give that message to that kid and that kid knows. Now that kid has to make a determination because the game lets you know. I've had kids come and tell me like they're oh, well, I'm not getting to play and this and that. And I go watch the film and I'll go to a game and then I have to tell them and say, so you're telling me your production is better than the kid that's in front of you? Well, no, it's just, I know. I said, okay, so what other position can you play? Well, this is the position. I said, yeah, but you got a strong person in front of you. It's kind of one of those situations where you're either going to have to help the team in another way or you're going to have to kind of wait your turn. I have a kid who's perfectly comfortable because he has 2 other kids in front of him. And those kids are really strong kids. And I respect him for it. He's learning. He's getting playing time. Those kids will be gone after this year. He's going to get his opportunity. He knows it. Right? Now, is it only, going to be I think a year that he gets? Yeah. But that's his path and he's okay with it. So if you're okay because you know that coach had a conversation with him, I had a conversation with him, and he understands that. I have to have the conversations with parents and kids that some coaches don't. Some coaches don't want to be questioned, and it's really not questioning, it's communication to me. All you have to do is say, man, you don't know what the hell you're doing defensively when you rotate, and I'll show you, right? What else do you need? One of my kids, long time ago when I first started, he was playing at Santa Teresa. Now, he was really good. Santa Teresa High School, they went on to win a state championship. Well, he was upset with what had happened in the game. He got pulled out. So when he got pulled out, he was upset. He let me know, and I said, well, bring the film over. We can look at it. So he brings the film over, and I'm looking at it. And I said, well, don't tell me when it happened. I want to, see it generally so I can organically know what happened. So I see it, and then then he's like, see, he took me out. I said, this right here? And he's like, yeah. So I said, okay, let's go back. So first of all, your player you're defending runs up and sets like a backdoor screen on the wing. Right? Your first issue is you never communicated with your teammate that the screen was coming. Okay? That's number one. Number two, player he's guarding cuts to the basket. You never said switch, get through, or anything. Right? That's the second thing. The third thing is you never made a decision to maybe kind of bump the kid, kind of shade him out so he doesn't have a direct, line to the basket. That's number three. Number four is at the point that you realize that you should have helped, which is late, you turn around and run after he catches the ball, goes up for a layup, and you foul him. It's an and one, and you got a foul. So you damn right he should have took you out. I would have taken you out if that would have happened. But the craziest thing is once I sat down and pointed it out and showed it to him, he was like, oh, okay. Now, oftentimes, you're so in the thick of it, you're not really processing and understanding. And a lot of times, maybe it shouldn't be on the coach to just tell you what you did. I'm a big proponent of when they bring them out, a lot of times you have to spend, a certain second or something saying, hey, you look, you didn't communicate. You let them come through and then you fouled them. That's why you're out, right? And you should have good assistants to do that. But oftentimes these coaches are short-staffed with, I don't know of any freshman coaches that have an assistant. I think sometimes if the varsity plays later, the varsity will come down and sit down and watch. And I think same thing with JV. But there are often times where it's just the freshman coach on their own, right? So they have to take a bulk of the responsibility. So there needs to be a system in which they try to do it. Now, having said all of that, and I could go on. Having said all of that, whatever decision that parent and that child make to try to improve their chances to play, that should be okay. If you're not playing them and you're not playing them for a reason, if that parent and child wants to pay for training or somewhere to try to get better at that, that should be okay. I've heard of situations where they get a little offended, but it's like, why are you offended? You've told them that they're not going to play. You're clearly not going to do anything to help them play because they've played 8 games in the season and they haven't touched the floor. So either you're not good enough to train them or you have not allowed yourself time to work with them. Let that child get the help that he or she needs so they can try to play. Now, it's not going to be a perfect scenario where any child that comes in and plays, practices or works or trains is going to get so much better. There are situations where some kids don't, but it's not the actual skill development. It's just the game moves too fast and they get anxiety. And that's a whole nother thing that has to be kind of brought along slowly, right? So having said all of that, I want to say I'm behind coaches a million percent because I talk to them on all different levels. I try to help them out. Some ask me for advice. Some like to see different things. I like to learn from them. I am on your side, in whatever way, a capacity I can help. But I just really need some of you to start being a little more transparent. And if you do this, the coaches that have been very successful, they do this at the beginning of the season when they first get their team. They talk to them. They let kids know what's going on, what's going to be expected, where you're going to play, where you might not play. And now those kids have to make a decision as to if they want to do it. They're not going to be complaining about the fact that they don't play. And you're going to have kids that say, well, I'm better than him or her. Well, yeah, if you're better than them, you need to show it in practice. That's what I tell them. Show them in practice. If you're not playing in a game, then practice the week of practice that you're practicing. Those are your games. You got to bust everybody's ass. You got to make it so evident in practice that the coach is going to be like, yeah, man, look at him, how he's going at him. He is killing him, right? That's when you're supposed to show it. If you can't show it in practice, it's going to be hard to get in the game. They're not going to trust you to get in the game just to show them how good you are. No, they want to know that you prove it. So players have to prove it. And that's what I tell every last one of our players that we train. They know that. I'm not well, you need to play. I think you should get an opportunity to, but that opportunity is usually in practice or maybe the first couple of games of the season to see how good you are. Then we take that information, we go for it. So that's all with that. I could go on, and I'm probably going to maybe at some point try to have a panel where I have a different, bunch of coaches, because I want to hear their side and their thought process of it. I don't want to assume that I just know everything. I'm just talking about my experiences with coaches, what I've seen, and everything that's been evident to me, right? So I would love to have other coaches on and discuss it a little bit more, because I think if you open the lines of communication and there's a lot more transparency, there can be a lot accomplished and there'll be a lot less feelings hurt. All right, now, bonus content before I get out of here. One thing I'm going to talk about is, are certain NBA players not marketable? I wonder which NBA players I'm talking about. Also, on my basketball training ideology. Now, if I didn't mention, this bonus content is for my Patreon people, right? So if you're not Patreon, you're not going to get this content. So you do need to look at subscribing so you can get this bonus content that I'm dropping, okay? I'm going to talk about coming to the ball. It's a big problem with kids, not just kids, with basketball players in general on all levels, coming to the ball. The dreaded one dribble then pass. One of the most irritating things I think I deal with or see with basketball. I'm gonna talk about dealing with traps, which is not trap houses. Yo, I'm not talking about trap houses, man. I'm not talking about trapping your significant other or something, if they're cheating on you. I'm not going that way when I'm talking about trap. I'm talking about basketball. Okay, somebody pertinent. Ooh, traps. What kind of trap you talking about? Trap house? You talking about trapping his girlfriend or boyfriend? I need to tune in. Well, I guess if you're going to subscribe, then you can. It just won't be on that. You'd have to hit me up on one of the other subscriptions, and then I can say, well, I'm not really a private investigator, but I've watched cheaters for, a decade, so I can help you out if you're trying to trap your man or your girlfriend. So yeah, that's another thing. And then I got a story about Crocs. Oh man, y'all got to hear this story. This story is something else, because I'll say that. But I'm gonna end it there. I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all love the new theme music. Send me a comment. Let me know what you think about it. Everybody said it's fire. That's everybody. So you'll get a snippet of it. I might try to include that in a link so you can listen to the whole entire song. But I'm going to end it with that. And as always, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.